Yes, Mr. Shaswati.
Thanks, Chair. Mr. Mnisi, I was hoping to close off this subject of the relevance of the termination letter by postulating three different steps, three different scenarios. The first scenario is a scenario extremely unlikely, but a scenario where the TMPD is presented with an invoice from before the 24-25 financial year. The scenario that you faced earlier that month in relation to the one outstanding Goobers invoice. Now, you'll accept that that scenario, how to deal with an invoice from the 23-24 financial year, would be completely unaffected by the fact of termination. It would be a problem whether termination took place or not. Do you accept that?
I accept that, and accept that this is a highly unlikely event.
Highly unlikely. So now we deal with a much more likely scenario, the scenario that there are a series of invoices for the 24-25 financial year, invoices before the 30th of June, in respect of which there are disputes. Payment hasn't been made. That is an issue in relation to year end that will be an issue whether termination has taken place or not. Any financial year, if there are disputes on invoices in relation to that financial year, that will be an issue whether or not the contract is going to survive the end of the financial year. You accept that?
I accept that, which justifies my urgency in terms of dealing with the matter as well.
Yes. And anticipating that issue is something that shouldn't be left to the 26th of June in any financial year, because it's something that will be an issue in any financial year. It's something that you can anticipate months in advance. You can have in place procedures for dealing with year end that will ensure that if there are any disputes in relation to invoices for that year, they are resolved speedily enough to meet your reporting requirements. You accept that?
I disagree with that, SC. The environment that we're working in is not the perfect environment. In the perfect environment, all of these issues must be dealt with on a monthly basis. These are some of the issues that we're still struggling with in the city, and we're still trying to ensure that the systems that we put on board deal with that. At present, we still have issues where we are experiencing concerns of this nature. Hence, I disagree with that notion. We are addressing these internal controls. This was a relevant, urgent matter for me to address.
But you're addressing those issues in relation to contracts other than contracts that end at the end of the financial year, are you not?
With all contracts.
All contracts. So it's an issue that arises in all contracts, whether they terminate on the 30th of June or whether they run into the next financial year.
Agreed.
So the termination of this particular contract wouldn't make it a special situation.
I disagree with that. I was being proactive. I needed to ensure that this matter doesn't persist in the future.
But you would have had to have been proactive whether or not the contract was continuing past 30 June.
Especially at year end, which is a major concern for me, to get the books in order, one, and to ensure that in the future, this matter does not repeat itself.
Yes, but that's an issue that you face not just in relation to this contract, but in relation to all other contracts of the city.
No, it's predominantly within TMPD security services.
Yes, well, let's not take it outside of TMPD. In relation to all other TMPD contracts, whether or not they're terminating on 30 June.
Other TMPD contracts are smaller in nature. They don't find themselves having complexities of this nature. Watchman Services one is where the biggest budget and expenditure is. They've got too many stakeholders and too many sites where they deploy service providers to do their work. Hence, this is a particular case.
Well, let's change the counterfactual. Let's assume there had been no termination letter. That's an issue that you would still have faced in relation to this contract. You would have needed year-end books to be, year-end procedures to be in order in relation to this contract, even though it was going to roll over into the next financial year.
I agree with you, SC.
So the termination per se, it did not make that issue a different issue for this contract.
I I disagree with you, SC. This was an urgent matter for myself. I analyzed, knowing the context of this issue, looking at the risk that we faced in the past. For me, this was an urgent matter that had to be addressed.
Well, look, I don't know if I can take it further in relation to the current financial year. Let's talk about the next financial year. The 25-26 financial year. If Gubis had received a letter saying you may not provide any services with effect from 1 July, you were aware of that?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
So if Gubis provided services with effect in August 2025 or on the 5th of July 2025, they knew they were doing something that the city had expressly informed them that they may not do.
Agreed.
And the city would be under no obligation to honor any invoice furnished for those services.
Yes.
So the termination letter couldn't have created any difficulties for the city in relation to what might happen in the 25-26 financial year. The city would just ignore an invoice that Gubis submitted for the 25-26 financial year.
I agree with that.
What I want to put to you is if we look at those three scenarios, the fact of the termination letter couldn't have had any effect on the urgency of a need to meet with General Dlamini. And I think you've given your answer in that respect, but what I want to put to you is that having regard to the situations with respect to the 23-24 financial year, the 24-25 financial year, and the 25-26 financial year, the termination letter, the fact of the termination letter, didn't make any difference to the urgency relating to year-end procedures.
SC, I respectfully disagree with you. From my dealing with this matter, it was urgent and it was necessary for me to deal with.
Well, let's leave it there. We may just have to agree to disagree. Can I deal with one last issue in relation to what happened between you and Sergeant Nkosi on the 26th of June? If we...
Page numbers, apologies, SC.
So we were at page 332, and the last exchange between you and Sergeant Nkosi in relation to the meeting or the non-meeting with Deputy Chief Dlamini is at the foot of 332, where you say, please let him know, I'll give him a call. And Sergeant Nkosi says he's inspecting it, and that's at 1:49 p.m.
Yes.
That evening, over the page on 333, Sergeant Nkosi sends you a screenshot of a chat that he's had with the MMC, Ms. Morodi, and saying at the bottom of towards the foot of page 334 where it says today, which would be 26 June, appointment booked and confirmed 11 o'clock at Pretoria North Verosky Spa. Let me know when you leave home. Please bring your car so I can take it to valet while you're busy on your massage. That's from Sergeant Nkosi, and the MMC responds, thank you so much, I will do so. And Sergeant Nkosi forwards you that screenshot with a little message at the bottom, Mfowethu. Why did he forward you that message? What did you understand him to be saying in that regard?
Well, I knew he knew and had an association with MMC Morodi. He was just informing me. I can't confirm further than that. From my perspective, he was just informing me.
He was informing you that he'd arranged a spa booking for MMC Morodi and was going to arrange for a car to be taken for a valet service while she was at the spa.
Yes, as per the message that he sent to me.
Can I take you, why would that be relevant to you?
Well, I can't comment on that. I had no interest in it as well.
You had no interest in it?
I just took note.
You had no interest in Sergeant Nkosi's steps to get into the good books of MMC Morodi?
Absolutely, yes. No interest.
Let's go to page 388. That's the next screenshot that Sergeant Nkosi sends you of a chat with MMC Morodi. And there you'll see there's a screenshot, it's from the 7th of October of that year, Again, it's a chat with MMC Marodi, and Sergeant Nkosi sends, top of it is a picture of some sound equipment at a meeting venue, and then a response from the MMC saying thank you so much with 4 hearts, and then another picture of the sound equipment, and then underneath Sergeant Nkosi says she asked for assistance. Your response to that message is thanks for helping her, Mfowethu. She must brief us of any developments. Now, why were you thanking Sergeant Nkosi for helping MMC Marodi?
It was just a courtesy for me saying, oh, she asked you for help and you helped her. That's very nice of you.
And what developments did you want MMC Marodi to brief you on?
If there were any service delivery matters that occur from the meeting that she was in, she needs to raise it so that we're able to deal with these issues accordingly.
Did you know what that meeting was?
I wasn't aware, but it's clear to me. Well, I don't recall now, but I probably think it was a community meeting that all councillors have. She was a chairperson of a region where they discuss urgent service delivery matters. Within that context, billing issues are raised as well. So if she encounters any issues of that nature, I would like to assist in terms of resolving the concerns raised by the residents.
But you didn't say she must brief us in relation to any issues or in relation to any concerns. You said brief us of any developments. What did you mean by development?
I meant if there are any issues that come above from the meeting that she has with the community from a service delivery perspective, and if there are finance-related issues, kindly brief me of any of those developments so that I can address them. That's what I meant.
I want to put to you that that's not the ordinary meaning of briefing someone on developments. When you ask for someone to brief you on developments, you're talking about an ongoing process that may change.
I disagree with you, SC, respectfully. Myself and Sergeant Nkosi have informal discussions where we don't look deep into meanings of words. The purpose of this, like I said, was any service delivery issues or finance matters that are raised by community so that I can assist in resolving them.
And when you said she must brief us, did you mean Sergeant Nkosi and Ngapesheya, or did you mean you and Sergeant Nkosi?
No, I meant me. When I said us, it's a similar way of speaking with the hours and the way that I had previously seen on circumstances, like we said, when the number 1 issue came out, I said, should we be concerned? It was in that context. I meant me.
So you meant you?
Yes.
So when you, in relation to number 1, when you said, should we be concerned, you were asking, should you be concerned about Sergeant Nkosi's meeting with Mr. Sibanyoni?
He, not me. I reference he. So we were using the words of we, ours interchangeably as a result of us being close. Here I was saying, you must let me know of any issues that might have occurred so that I'm able to assist the residents.
So when you say she must brief us of any developments, you mean she must brief me of any developments?
Yes.
Not me and Sergeant Nkosi?
No.
And when you say, should we be concerned about the meeting with Mr. Sibanyoni, you mean should Sergeant Nkosi be concerned about the meeting with Mr. Sibanyoni?
That's exactly what I said as well earlier on.
Yes, so you're using me in 2 completely contradictory ways in those 2 meetings. You'll accept.
In short, this meant, when I say we, is your problems are my problem, my brother. So should we be concerned? Please, can you brief us on the developments? It was our way of speaking.
So brief us of developments is brief me of developments. Should we be concerned is should you be concerned?
Yes.
So we is serving as a multi-purpose pronoun that can mean any singular or plural pronoun that you want. Is that what you're saying?
In an informal discussion, we didn't ensure that English grammar is up to scratch when we had discussions, SC.
I see. Can I put to you?
You're still on the same topic.
No, it's.
Okay, maybe then let me ask my question anyway. This event, this assistance that is offered by, or that was provided by Sergeant Nkosi to the MMC, what did you know about it?
I don't recall exactly, Commissioner, what was it about?
Sorry, you say you don't recall.
Was a service delivery meeting that she normally has. It looks like he or she requested him for assistance with additional sound systems. So I said, oh, in that meeting that you're in, if there are any issues that are raised, please let me know so I can assist the communities that you're meeting.
So, and you say firstly, you don't remember what it was about.
I don't remember the exact meeting where it was. I do remember the context around. She was in.
And you say the context was what?
Commissioner, I'm saying that she was in a service delivery meeting. Within that service delivery meeting, it's clear that she had requested Sergeant Nkosi from what he had sent to me. I said to him, oh, thank you for assisting her. I wasn't even involved. I didn't even know this was going to take place. From that point of view, I offer, say, if she encounters any issues, please, she must let me know. So I'm able to address the developments or the issues emanating from that meeting.
Okay. So when you say she must brief us of any developments, you're saying if there are any issues, then she must tell you
Yes,
of
yes,
service
Commissioner.
delivery.
Yes, Commissioner.
She must tell you and Sergeant Nkosi.
No, she must tell me.
Well, he seems to think that she must tell both of you because he responds, yes, indeed, my brother. So according to Sergeant Nkosi, whatever developments means in this preceding WhatsApp message must be briefed to both of you.
I can't comment on how he understood it, but when he responded, I'm fully aware that he knows how we speak because we don't have issues previously and our understanding is clear. So my assumption was he understood exactly what I meant when I said that.
Yes, well, I'm looking at your text and his text. I don't know what he was thinking, but I'm working with the text and your text as well. Your text is she must brief us of any developments. Mr. Chaskalson has told you what his understanding of that is, and I agree, I concur with him. It's similar, I understand it the same way. But importantly for me, Sergeant Nkosi says, yes, indeed, my brother. So he agrees with you that the MMC must brief you of developments. That's his text. And on the plain reading and understanding of the text, it is not you, it doesn't refer to you in the singular, it refers to both of you, that you both must get that briefing. I've heard your response to it. I'm just putting to you that I share Mr. Chaskalson's view of what's here. You may comment. I don't mean to stop you if you want to comment.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd rather not comment on that message from Sergeant Nkosi's perspective, but on my understanding, I would stick to what I said earlier on, that he knew how we speak and he knew exactly what the ask would have meant, as did on previous occasions.
Thank you.
So when we look at these conversations between yourself and Deputy Chief Dlamini, intermediated through Sergeant Nkosi, we see a pattern where messages get sent, a repeated pattern, not just through the Gubis email, WhatsApps that we've looked at, but also through the TMPD one emails, WhatsApps that we've looked at. We see a repeated pattern where messages from Deputy Chief Dlamini get sent to you through Sergeant Nkosi, and where messages from you get sent to Deputy Chief Dlamini through Sergeant Nkosi. So you and Deputy Chief Dlamini are in effect exchanging messages through Sergeant Nkosi. You'll accept that we see, probably more than 100 of those instances.
I accept that we saw instances of that nature occurring, but my discussions in terms of the relevant matters that were discussed, in terms of TMPD1, in terms of the outstanding Gubis payment, which was only instances where we had those indirect communications as well as the termination, which I tried to stop. But my explanation on those matters and the reasoning behind without going back is still relevant and stands as well. But I do accept what you're saying with the provision of my explanations being taken into account.
No, absolutely. We've heard your explanations. What I want to put to you is there is a possible other explanation. And in order to do that, I need to draw to your attention that in the WhatsApps of Sergeant Nkosi, we see the same mode in his WhatsApps with General Sabia and his WhatsApps with Mr. Vusimuzi Kat Matlala. and in his WhatsApps with a Mr. Stephen Motsumi. So we see that Sergeant Nkosi, that General Sabia and Mr. Matlala never communicate directly on WhatsApp, that we are aware of. General Sabia and Mr. Motsumi never communicate directly on WhatsApp that we are aware of. But we do see messages being passed from General Sabia to Sergeant Nkosi and on to Mr. Matlala, and then back from Mr. Matlala through Sergeant Nkosi to General Sabia. And similarly in relation to Mr. Motsumi, messages from General Sabia going to Mr. Motsumi through Sergeant Nkosi, and messages from Mr. Motsumi coming back to General Sabia through Sergeant Nkosi. And in those cases, we understand that mode of communication as serving a very obvious function, that General Sabia doesn't want to leave a trace of direct communications with Mr. Matlala, so he communicates with Mr. Matlala through Sergeant Nkosi. And similarly in relation to Mr. Motsumi. That's the appearance at any rate. And this mode of communication that we see between yourself and Deputy Chief Dlamini in relation to TMPD1 and in relation to into the Gubis issues about invoicing and termination has the same hallmarks, that you're actually having very extensive communications, but there's no sign of them on either of your phones. All that one sees is your communications with Sergeant Nkosi and General Dlamini's communications with Sergeant Nkosi. And what I want to put to you is that why you are using this mode of communication with General Dlamini through Sergeant Nkosi is that you are engaged in activities that are irregular activities, and you don't want to leave a trace of direct communication with Deputy Chief Dlamini in relation to those activities. What's your comment on that?
Thank you, SC. I think firstly, I must respectfully strongly disagree with you. I'm not going to comment on other issues that you might have seen through other discussions that don't involve me. I'm going to focus on the matters at hand. And as stipulated earlier on, it was an issue of convenience. I did mention that. Also, an equally important point is that that channel is broken. I request for his contact details and I start dealing with him directly as a mechanism of avoiding the hindsight agreement that I set. I did agree that in hindsight, I should have asked for the contact details immediately. I agree to that. However, I strongly disagree with the notion that we're engaged in illicit or illegal activities that are unlawful. And the major difference is that there is trace of communication directly between myself and Deputy Chief Dlamini. There's significant evidence to that. We did break the chain because I did realize the hindsight error of allowing Sergeant Nkosi to involve himself initially. So I strongly disagree with you with respect, SC.
Well, you broke the chain when it was urgent and you needed to speak to the General. That leaves no trace of what you said to the General. Are you suggesting that you have WhatsApps that you sent to the General in relation to TMPD1 or in relation to the Gubis invoicing?
What I'm suggesting is that I requested for his contact details in order to deal with the matters moving forward, particularly on the matter that we have just discussed now, on the accounts payables matter, as well as the termination letter. I did request that.
Are there any WhatsApps that you and General Dlamini exchanged in relation to either TMPD1 or any of these Gubis-related issues?
No, because I didn't have his contact details from the Gubis invoices, and I wasn't interested, and he wouldn't send me any WhatsApp messages for TMPD1. There are no WhatsApp messages.
So the only WhatsApp messages, we see extensive WhatsApp messages in relation to TMPD1 and Gubis where you are communicating with the General, but they all go through Sergeant Nkosi.
Gubis in relation to the payments have been resolved. TMPD1, I did not at one point agree to have those communications. I did not at one point request any of those messages to be sent to me. So I'm going to distance myself from that completely. I'm not going to respond to those because those were not WhatsApp messages for myself. I didn't even trigger any of those.
So you understood that Sergeant Nkosi was sending you messages from General Dlamini in relation to TMPD1. Let's take that last message, that last set of messages, the fourth case, where on the 25th of March, you, I'm looking for my page now. It's page 177. Let's look at that text at message time 7:08:18 p.m., 9:08 p.m. on the 25th of March. You get a message from Sergeant Nkosi which says, Captain, find below our vehicles for land to be given ku Mfowethu in order of priority. El Shaddai and Ngapasheya, and on it goes. So you look at that message and you know it's coming from Deputy Chief Dlamini. You're nodding, is that a yes?
I confirm, SC.
You answer it. Thanks, Mfowethu, I'm on top of this. You follow up. This is ours, Mfowethu. This is the final list, right? And he responds, yes, it's our final list. And follows up with another screenshot of an exchange from General Dlamini. Did you not expect that he would send your messages back to Deputy Chief Dlamini?
From my perspective, I was clear. In this instance, I was huffing and puffing as a result of me realizing.
We dealt with huffing and puffing. I'm dealing with a separate issue. You said you never authorized any communication with General Dlamini through Sergeant Nkosi in relation to TMPD1. You did in relation to Gubis, but not in relation to TMPD1. So I'm asking, did you not expect that Sergeant Nkosi would return those messages to General Dlamini?
I didn't expect that. I didn't request that.
What would the purpose of the huffing and puffing be if the originator of the person you wanted to stop sending you messages didn't receive your message of huffing and puffing?
Like I said, the purpose was to stop this from persisting any further. I had realized that they were taking me for a fool. I did the same thing.
So the only way that that purpose could be achieved was if General Dlamini, who was the originator of the message that said, find below our vehicles for land to be given ku Mfowethu in order of priority, received your huffing and puffing response.
I can't comment on that. I didn't authorize him to send. If he were to send, he would have sent it on his own. But from my perspective, there was no expectation I was addressing him.
You wanted both Sergeant Nkosi and the person who was sending messages through him, Deputy Chief Dlamini, to stop sending these messages in the mistaken belief that you had now accepted their invitation to interfere with the tender. Is that not what your intention was?
I wanted the person who was sending me these messages to stop, and that person was Sergeant Nkosi.
But you knew that Sergeant Nkosi was forwarding you messages that he got from Deputy Chief Dlamini.
I knew that.
And so the flow of the messages would only stop if what you said to Sergeant Nkosi in your huffing and puffing exercise also made its way to Deputy Chief Dlamini.
It was up to him, SC, whether he sends it or not. I was not interested in that. My pure interest was getting this matter off my table and ensuring that I close it indefinitely.
How would it get off your table if Sergeant Nkosi didn't communicate to Deputy Chief Dlamini that the CFO is on board, he's understood that this is our final list, and he's going to ensure that our final list gets the tender?
As long as I have sent the message clearly to the individual who was sending it to me, I was completely happy. I was not interested whether he sends it to whichever third party. I did not authorize that, I did not sanction that, and I didn't request it at all. I was interested in the individual that was sending me these things.
Well, I'll leave it there. I want to turn to one brief topic before I get to the final topic, and it relates to paragraph 25 of your statement on page 6 of your statement, where you dealt with the problem with Mr. Lekukela, or your conflict with Mr. Lekukela, and how you reached out to Spiwe Mashile to approach Sergeant Nkosi to try and facilitate a meeting between you.
I'm on page 6. I'm on
page
that.
6.
Yes.
Sergeant Nkosi explained, also testified about what we assume is the same meeting. And if you can go to page 665 of file 4, I think it's your bundle 3.
665,
665.
bundle 3.
There you'll see chats.
Apologies. My bundle 3 ends at 664.
Those are documents that we gave to your legal team.
Okay, I've got a printout.
You've got hard copies, great.
Yes.
And are they paginated, 665?
Yes, true, they are, yes.
So there you'll see Sergeant Nkosi's, an extract from Sergeant Nkosi's chats with Mr. Mashile, who he saves as Comrade Didi Mabuza, Deputy President. And you'll see that he sent that Mr. Mashile sent 2 screenshots to Sergeant Nkosi at 5:36 p.m. on the 17th of January 2024. And the first screenshot is a screenshot which appears to be a screenshot of a chat between Mr. Mashile and yourself, whom he describes, whom he saves as Jerry Kazi. Does that, if you look at that screenshot on page 666, do you confirm that that is a screenshot of an exchange between yourself and Mr. Mashile?
Yes, I confirm.
And there, the message goes, okay, Kazi, from you, I've got an issue. And then there's a voice note and a voice call. And then you send an extract from your diary saying, I've got an urgent special exco now at 6. He says, you'll indicate. And you say, let's meet 007 tonight. After my meeting, it's urgent. Now, is this the meeting that you set up in relation to Sergeant Nkosi and Mpho Lekukela?
I can confirm that, SC.
And you refer to Sergeant Nkosi as 007?
On our first encounter, he was introduced to me as 007.
As 007. Did you ever ask why he was introduced as 007?
No, I was not interested. He even says me as Madlanga CFO. You look at Mr. Mashile says me as Jerry Kazi. I wasn't interested.
You didn't think he might have ambitions of being James Bond?
No, I was not interested at all.
Okay, we had that conversation with him. So then the exchange continues. And in fact, if we go back to page 665, you'll see that you'll see that a venue is given, the pivot please next to Palazzo, but at 667, there's another screenshot that gets sent to Sergeant Nkosi, which has essentially the same picture, except now Mr. Mashile has said to you, sorted and confirmed, and you've said, thanks, Kazi 7-ish, right. Now, who was present at that meeting?
Myself, Sergeant Nkosi, Mr. Mashile, as well as Mr. Lekukela.
It was just the 4 of you?
Just the 4 of us.
You see, the one strange thing that we saw in relation to this screenshot is that shortly after he received the first screenshot asking for the meeting, Sergeant Nkosi forwarded that screenshot to Mr. Steve Motsumi. That's page 668. Have you ever met Mr. Motsumi?
No, I've never met him and I don't know who that is.
You don't know who he is, so
No, I
you,
don't.
you can't comment on why Sergeant Nkosi would have told Mr. Motsumi about a meeting he'd been asked to attend to broker peace between yourself and Mr. Lekokela.
No, I see, I can't confirm at all. I don't know who that is.
The very last topic you'll be glad to hear. We don't have in the papers the declaration of interest forms that you signed as a member of the BAC, to the best of my knowledge. But I think they're generic, and maybe you can correct me. If you go, for instance, to file 5, page 109, there's one for the BEC. And I think that these forms, we know that the BSC also has the same form.
Page 109.
109.
In my pack, it's the fourth pack.
Yes, your fourth bundle.
109.
In fact, it's right through. It's 104 onwards to the whole series of them. Do you see it?
I'm on page 109 SC.
Now, is this the same? I'm not. Obviously, it says bid evaluation committee at the top of it, but does the BAC have to sign a form in the same terms?
Yes, I agree with you.
And those forms are in content identical, even though the title at the top will be
I
different.
think they would be similar, extremely similar.
So the paragraph I'm interested in is the paragraph under the first box or table. And it says, is there anything else or the perception by others that could affect your objectivity and independence in this meeting? If your answer is yes, please supply details. Now, is that in the form that you sign at BAC?
Yes.
And it refers to the perception by others. You see? Or the
Yes.
perception by others.
Yes.
Now, and you presumably signed this form at your BAC meetings.
Yes.
And did you disclose anything under this form?
I had no interest to declare.
You had nothing to
I
disclose
had
under
nothing
that.
to declare because I had no interest with any of the bidders.
Well, let me put to you certain facts which I think are now common cause. The first is that Becky Nkosi is the owner of Ngapa share. That's accepted, is it not?
Accepted?
And Ngapa share was one of the bidders in the bid that your BAC was adjudicating in relation to TMPD 1.
Accepted?
Accepted. His brother, Sergeant Nkosi, is a close friend of yours and someone who you regard as your brother for life.
Accepted?
By the time the BAC sat, Sergeant Nkosi, your brother for life, had been approaching you, trying to get you to rig the bid in favor of Becky Nkosi's company, Ngapa Share.
He didn't expressly state that, but yes.
That's what you understood
That's what I
him to be.
understood in the end, yes.
And he'd made 4 different approaches in that regard.
Yes.
While the TMPD 1 bid was pending before the Tshwane Council, you'd also been assisting Sergeant Nkosi in relation to another bid of Ngapa Share that you say was for a different organ of state.
From a general perspective, I've never not once interacted with any of the returnable documents.
Yes, but you say that you were offering advice in relation, your version is you were offering advice in relation to the abstract tender document and what Ngapa Share had to do to put itself in a position where it might comply.
Yes, SC.
During the period in which that TMPD 1 bid was pending before the city, you were also in direct communication with Becky Nkosi and invited him to submit a bid for a different tender to the city of Tshwane. You recall that? I think it was the refuse bags
Yes,
tender.
but to add, I did not know that he had bidded at that point.
No, but we're now looking at objective facts that were true from which others might draw an inference. Others might think your objectivity and independence
Yes.
was. In relation to that other tender, you had written to Sergeant Nkosi saying, quotes, "I have sent the above to Becky. We need to regroup on it." You recall that?
I recall that, and I did explain what the regrouping meant, that if needs be, if they don't understand the mandatory administrative and evaluation criteria, I'm available to help clarify from a general perspective.
You'd also been involving, while this TMPD1 bid was pending, you'd been involving Sergeant Nkosi in a range of matters relating to the affairs of the client department, the TMPD, including processes relating to the payment and termination of private service providers contracted by the city through that department.
He had involved himself, like I previously said, I did not actively involve him. I did, however, on the second instance in terms of the termination, send him that communication, which I have agreed that it's a perception that I involved him in that instance, but I further did try to clarify that as well when I requested the direct contact details of the user department.
Well, whoever started that process, you continued with it, and you continued to communicate in relation to those Gubis matters with Chief Dlamini through Sergeant Nkosi.
I accept that for the Kubi's payment, SC.
In the process of involving Sergeant Nkosi in Gubis-related matters, you put Sergeant Nkosi in a position where he gained access to documents exchanged between the city and one of the competing bidders in TMPD1, namely Gubis, including an invoice that showed the pricing used by Gubis in its dealings with the city.
I disagree with that respectfully, SC. I did not share an invoice with Sergeant Nkosi.
You didn't share an invoice with Sergeant Nkosi, but if you hadn't involved Sergeant Nkosi in the Gubis process, he would never have received that invoice.
I also respectfully disagree with that notion. The general or whoever sent him that invoice took a decision on their own, and they will explain for themselves. I cannot account for that.
But the general only got involved with Sergeant Nkosi in relation to Gubis because Sergeant Nkosi had set himself up as your intermediary with the general in relation to Gubis.
I agree to that. However, at no point did I authorize any sharing of confidential information in terms of the Gubis payment, and at no point did I personally share any confidential and sensitive information on the Gubis payment.
So we've looked at 8 different facts. Did it not occur to you that if competing bidders in TMPD1 were aware of these 8 facts, they would have thought that you were not a person who could objectively preside over the adjudication of TMPD1?
At that particular point in time, I'm going to cover this question. At this point in time, Chair, I did not perceive that as an interest, purely based on the fact that, firstly, my bias or my objectivity was not impaired. I did not know Begi. He's not an associate of mine. I agree, the brother is an associate of mine, but Begi is not an associate of mine whatsoever. I only have engagement with Sergeant Nkosi. So I knew from that perspective that, firstly, my bias was not going to be, my objectivity, was not going to be impaired whatsoever. Second to that, the PAC is a panel-based decision-making body. It's not one individual. There are a number of subject matter experts who sit throughout that process, meaning objectivity is further enhanced. Chairperson, I also want to confirm on the TMPD1 matter, which we are raising. There are score sheets that were provided to me as part of the bundle. Within this bundle, I think it's the 4th bundle, independent members scored all bidders accordingly, which gives an indication that these bidders were compliant by the 11th of April. That's when the score sheets were signed, and that's an essential date for us to consider. Lastly, Chair, on the basis of my objectivity not being impaired, because I don't know Begi, I'm not Begi's friend. Yes, I'm his brother's friend, I can concur, and I have admitted that. At that point in time, I saw that my objectivity would not be impaired whatsoever, and I signed the declaration. Further to that, the panel-based decision-making process, where there are a number of subject matter experts within PAC, including legal services, also assurance that my objectivity wouldn't have been affected. However, Chair, in hindsight, when we are discussing all of these matters, I need to agree that now when we're discussing these matters, there is a perception of conflict, that it's clear and it's apparent, and I can't avoid that. However, what I'm certain on is that when I signed this declaration form, from my perspective, my objectivity was not impaired whatsoever. It remains not impaired at this point in time. It was a panel-based decision-making process with a number of subject matter experts who would have equally made their views and objectives to this matter.
Let's deal with two separate issues. The issue in relation to the BAC being a panel. That can't affect issues relating to the declaration of interest, because the purpose of the declaration of interest relates to the bias or appearance of bias of any individual member of the panel. You'll accept that?
I accept that. However, the decisions that are taken are not solely mine. In the event, for argument's sake, which I don't agree to, and it was not the case, my bias, I was not objective, and it was impaired. Based on this panel-based decision-making process, it would have been a further safeguard. However, what's essential from my perspective is that initially, from the onset, and now as we speak, my objectivity is not was not and is not impaired. However, I'm seeing the perception that is being created around this when you are raising the sequence of events of what occurred, and we've discussed the merits of those issues in a separate discussion.
The purpose of these declaration of interest forms relates to individual cases, doesn't relate to the committee. Each individual needs to sign them. So the fact that the committee acts as a safeguard is irrelevant to these individual interest forms.
I see, at the time, when we're evaluating or adjudicating over this process, my bias, my objectivity was not impaired, and I still agree to that. I'm just adding a further factor to give you comfort that in the event it was, which it wasn't at all, and I confirmed that there's a panel-based decision-making. And in light of that, it is a further safeguarding process that I on my own would never be able to take a decision of this nature on my own. I also further agree that in hindsight, through the revelations that are coming out of this commission, there could be there might be perceived conflict of interest. But from my perspective, at the point of signing this, I was not conflicted at all, and my objectivity would not have been impaired.
On your logic, the logic that the BAC is a committee and a decision that comes out of that is a committee decision, and therefore an individual couldn't impact the outcome. On that logic, then there's no point to this safeguard that people who have an interest or potentially have an interest should declare it, and in fact go so far as not sit through that process, because on your logic, it's a committee decision, so it shouldn't matter. And so you could change the facts here and say, even if Begi were your brother, or he was your friend, your direct friend, that would not disqualify you or require you to make a declaration, because the BAC is a committee decision. So even your bias would not matter, because others would overrule you by votes. That cannot be. That's not correct. And I think, maybe I expect that as CFO and custodian of your procurement processes, you are not proposing that the way you're reasoning it is correct. It can't be correct.
Commissioner, Begi is not my friend.
No, that's why I say you could change the facts for purpose of my discussion with you, following your logic. Remember, your logic is BAC is a committee, so no one individual can sway the decision or can determine, in fact, the outcome of a BAC, because it's a committee which comprises other people. Effectively, meaning it really shouldn't matter that you may or may not have had an interest and not declare it because it's a committee. That's the effect of what you're saying. And I'm saying, but it cannot be correct. that is so, because then if you are correct, then there's no point to these declarations, to these committees, because it's a committee of people, and the decision is not a decision of a single person.
Commissioner, I feel there is a point, because in terms of these declarations, you need to declare if your family members, your close friends, are directors within these companies. So it's still a relevant matter that must be considered. Fact of this matter is that Bheki is not my friend. Ajahn Nkosi is not a director of Ngapesheya. On the signing of this declaration, my objectivity was not impaired. I still maintain that till now. However, in hindsight, I'm agreeing that with the sequence of events, there is a perception of conflict. But at the point of signing, I had no conflict whatsoever. I still have no conflict whatsoever, but the perception, it looks like there is something that's there.
Okay, I've heard you, thank you.
Are you aware of what the administrative law in relation to perceptions of conflict is? Do you know that if there is an objective perception of conflict, that the administrative decision can be reviewed and set aside?
I'm not aware of that.
So in administrative review cases, you don't need to show actual bias or actual conflict. You only have to show a reasonable appearance of conflict or a reasonable appearance of bias. That is the law.
I don't know the law. So I think I'll have to engage that with my legal team, but I can't comment on that. But what I do know is that there have been cases that we've seen out, particularly in reference to perception of compliance and how those were ruled against. There's many cases that we could refer here to. I think the first one that comes to the top of my mind is the previous Chief Justice Mogoeng, and I think his wife saving the state attorney presenting a matter to him. That was a matter that was deliberated on. There's another matter that I'm aware of which involves yourself, Senior Counsel Chaskelson, where your dad at one point in time was a president, you had been an advocate in a specific matter, and panel-based decision-making process was also considered. So I'm aware of the general matters around that in terms of the perception of conflict, but like I'm saying, I will address the matter further with my legal team for any further clarity.
Look, in relation to my personal position, the issue of panel was utterly irrelevant. And there's certainly no suggestion in any of these matters, including the decided judgment, that because it's a panel issue, it is different. It has nothing to do with being a panel court. But what I want to put to you is, well, let's just establish, you accept now that those facts that are common cause give rise to a reasonable apprehension that you may not have been objective. You say you were objective, didn't impair your objectivity, but a third-party competing bidder would have had a reasonable apprehension that you could not objectively assess this, be part of the adjudication of this tender.
No, I don't agree with you.
You
And
don't?
I have stated the reasons why I don't agree with you. I'm only saying that in hindsight, there is a perception of conflict, which must further be assessed on its own merit. I do not agree with you. I was objective in terms of handling this matter. I have no interest in the company Ngapesheya whatsoever. And my reason behind that, I signed this declaration with my knowledge of objectivity not being impaired. So I don't agree with you on that perspective.
Let's put it this way. A reasonable competing bidder could have had a perception that you were conflicted, could have had a perception that you were conflicted. I'm not saying that you were conflicted for now. I'm putting to you that a reasonable competing bidder, now in possession of all of these facts, could have had a perception that you were conflicted.
I don't agree with you, Essie. These facts have its own merits, and we've discussed that in general. If we present these as facts, it's as if we are not taking into consideration the critical discussion that we had around those. Hence, I'm saying I agree to the fact of there being a perception in general. I'm not saying any bidder would have seen this and said, yes, there was a perception, but in general, there seems to have been a perception. But I maintain that during me signing this declaration, my objectivity was not impaired. Further to that, the panel-based decision-making process was an essential step of concurring the process.
So what is this? So there would have been a perception, or there could have been a perception that you were conflicted. You accept that?
In hindsight, I accept it.
In hindsight, you accept it,
Yes.
based on the objective facts, not that you were conflicted, but the facts that we've been through might have created a perception that you were conflicted.
I've agreed to that,
And
taking into account the explanations that we had on each items. It's important for me to raise that so the record is clear.
And just looking at those facts, would it have been reasonable to have had that perception, just looking at those facts?
I don't know. I can't comment on that. Hence, I'm saying this matter must be adjudicated on separately. I can't comment on that fact. I'm just saying from my reviewing of this, a perception seems to have been created in hindsight.
You see, Mr. What I want to put to you is that, quite aside from the true facts of whether or not you were biased and you were involved in Sergeant Nkosi's attempts to rig this tender, your conduct in continuing to sit on the BAC as a matter of law renders this bid capable of being reviewed and set aside by any losing bidder. And what you have done is you've put the city in a situation where this bid is capable of being set aside by any losing bidder because of your inability to see that the objective facts relating to your relationship to Ngapa Share disqualified you from sitting on this bid.
Yes, I completely disagree with you. A thorough supply chain management process was followed in terms of the evaluation and the appointment of this bid. Further to that, an external legal firm played a significant oversight in terms of validating the contents and the facts around the award. In terms of the declaration, I was clear. I've got no interest in Ngapa Share. I still have no interest in Ngapa Share. I'm not an associate of the director whatsoever. I am an associate of the brother, but that does not make me an associate of the director of Ngapa Share. I also confirmed that on signing this declaration, my objectivity was not affected at all, and it's also key to add that the panel-based decision-making process is essential in order to add additional weight to that. So I respectfully disagree with you on that notion.
Did you disclose any of the facts that we've gone through to the independent legal firm?
Which facts?
Becky's brother, Sergeant Nkosi, is a close friend and someone who you regard as a brother for life. Sergeant Nkosi had been approaching you, trying to get you to rig the bid in favor of his brother's company. While the present bid was pending before the Tshwane Council, you'd also been assisting Sergeant Nkosi in relation to a bid that Ngapa Share had submitted to another organ of state. During the period in which the present bid was pending before the city, you were in direct communication with Becky Nkosi, the director of Ngapa Share, inviting him to submit bids for a different tender. In relation to that other different tender of the city, you'd written to Sergeant Nkosi saying, have sent the above to Becky. We need to regroup on it. You'd also been involving Sergeant Nkosi in a range of matters relating to the affairs of the client department, the TMPD, including processes relating to the payment and termination of private service providers contracting with the department. And in the process, you'd given Sergeant Nkosi access to documents between the city and one of the competing bidders in TMPD1, including an invoice that showed the pricing used by that bidder in respect of the city. Did you disclose any one of those 8 facts to the law firm?
Yes, thank you so much.
Sorry, well, the question is, did you disclose any one of those facts to the law firm whose rubber stamp you now want to rely on?
These are not facts, SC, and I can't agree to that as being facts. Because I did not share, firstly, I did not share any sensitive information with Sergeant Nkosi in terms of invoicing. You raised it as the last fact now.
I thought we'd agreed that these were facts, but let's take them one by one so we can actually address them one by one. Becky's brother, Sergeant Nkosi, is a close friend and someone who you regard as your brother for life. Is that a fact?
That's a fact.
Did you disclose it to the law firm?
There was no need to disclose that to the law
Yes
firm.
or no? You can give explanations and theories as to whether there was a need or not. Did you disclose it?
First answer to that is no.
Okay. Well,
Can I-
you
can I
can give
explain?
your explanations
SC.
later. Let's just clarify the position
SC,
in relation
apologies.
to the facts first. You can
Professor,
come back, take
apologies,
each
SC.
one and give your explanation. I just want to establish the facts because you weren't willing to say, when I asked you, did you disclose any of these facts to the lawyer?
My profuse apologies, SC. We're going to get lost in discussion if you're unable to allow me to please expand.
No, no,
on each
I want to establish the facts in answer to my question. I just want an answer to the question. Don't want your explanation yet. You can give the explanation later. Let's get the ground facts ready.
SC, that's
So-
that I respectfully request.
Mr. Mnisi, you've just said what Mr. Shaskalson put to you were not facts. Can we just establish the facts? You can, if you then want to explain, and you can take notes on all of them. But let's just establish the facts, please. If at the end of it you want to say, although I say A, B, C, D are facts, here's an explanation I want to give. Let's just get a move on what is fact and what is not, please.
The next fact, Sergeant Nkosi had made approaches to you, which you understood as approaches that were trying to get you to rig the bid in favor of his brother's company. Is that a fact?
That's what I understood.
So it is a fact that you understood that Sergeant Nkosi had been approaching you in an attempt to persuade you to rig the bid in favor of his brother's company.
Okay?
It's a fact. Did you disclose it to the attorneys? Simple yes or no?
Right now, no.
No.
There was no need, but I'll explain later.
You
Sorry,
can talk about need later. He had made 4 different approaches to you in this regard. Is that a fact?
Yes.
Did you disclose it to the attorneys?
No.
While the present bid was pending before the Tshwane Council, you'd also been assisting Sergeant Nkosi in relation to a bid that Ngapashare had submitted to another organ of state. Is that a fact?
Yes.
Did you disclose it to the
No.
attorneys? During the period in which the present bid was pending before the Tshwane Council, you were in direct communication with Becky Nkosi, the director of Ngapashare, inviting him to submit a bid for a different tender from the Tshwane Council. Is that a
Yes.
fact? Is it a
Yes.
fact?
Yes.
Did you disclose
No.
it to the attorneys? No. In relation to that tender, you had written to Sergeant Nkosi saying, have sent the above to Becky, we need to regroup on it. Is that a
Yes.
fact?
You spoke at the same time.
Yes, Commissioner,
thank you.
apologies. Yes.
And you didn't disclose this to
No.
any attorneys?
No, no, SC.
You had involved Sergeant Nkosi in a range of matters relating to the affairs of the client department, the TMPD, and these processes included processes relating to the payment and termination of private service providers contracted by the TMPD. Is that a fact?
It's not a fact.
What is factually incorrect in
What's
relation to
factually,
it?
sorry, SC, what's factually incorrect is about payment. I involved him in terms of the purchase orders. No involvement whatsoever on payment aspect.
Okay, so if I were to say, including processes relating to purchase orders and the termination of private, you would be happy with
Yes.
that? And you didn't disclose that to any attorneys?
Nope.
And in those processes, through involving Sergeant Nkosi, you put him in a position where he got access to documents between the city and one of the competing bidders, including an invoice that shows the pricing used by that competing bidder in relation to the city. Is that a...
It's not a fact. I did not give him any information, nor did I put him in a position to receive that.
So you are suggesting that if you had not consented to Sergeant Nkosi intermediating your relationship with Deputy Chief Dlamini, he would still have got the invoice that Gubis issued to the city?
What I'm suggesting is that I did not give him authority at any stage in time to obtain any sensitive information. I'm sure Deputy Chief Dlamini will have to answer it on himself. From my perspective, this is not a fact.
If you had said to Sergeant Nkosi at the outset Sergeant Nkosi, you have no business getting involved in any TMPD matters. I will speak to General Dlamini myself. Please do not approach him. Would he have got access to that invoice which discloses Gubis's pricing to the city?
Chair, I can't comment on what would have happened. The matter that you're putting towards me is that is this a fact that I enabled him or I gave him information, sensitive information of bidders, and that's not a fact.
I see.
I'm not going to speculate on what would have happened.
You were aware that Sergeant Nkosi had got access to that document?
Afterwards, I was aware and there's nothing I could do to stop that. He already had that.
Yes, but at the time that you sat in the committee, you knew that Sergeant Nkosi, the brother of the Ngapa Share director, had got access through the city to the pricing of a competitor in relation to the city.
9 months down the line, I was aware of that.
You were aware of that, yes. Now, you disclosed none of this to any attorney who was expressing a view on the probity of the process. That's common cause.
I've said yes to those issues, except for the last issue that you're saying.
Well, you didn't disclose that to any attorney. Did you say to someone, I didn't facilitate it, but Sergeant Nkosi actually got access to a Gubis invoice to the city?
Okay. No, I did not disclose that. I didn't see the need.
I see, yeah. Now, if you want to explain any of that, please feel free.
Okay. I can explain now. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank
Be
you,
my
SC.
guest.
The first one is, did I disclose a relationship with Sergeant Nkosi is my friend? Sergeant Nkosi is neither a director of Ngapa Share, nor is he a shareholder of the entity. As per the declaration form that's in front of us, it's clear on what you should disclose against. Any friends that I have that have no interest or any association with the firm, there's no need to disclose that. I saw that irrelevant, and there was no need for me to disclose that to the probity teams. Secondly, further to that, the exercise that was undertaken, there was no request for me to disclose that. I had disclosed information of the directors as per the declaration of form interest that the city has. The second matter, you say, Sergeant Nkosi made approaches to me, and I did clarify on the approaches that were there. Firstly, I had insufficient evidence to disclose this to any party because it was clear that he was asking me for compliance. I did suspect, I can agree, that at one point, due to the persistence, it's now resulting to an individual persisting that I go further than that. I had no conclusive evidence. There was nothing for me to declare to any of the property teams. Item number 3, you raised the same issue but on 4 different occasions. Equally, I had no conclusive evidence. There was nothing for me to declare. This was an individual constantly saying, may you please assist with compliance. Hence, there was nothing for me to declare to the probity team. The fourth one is on an assistance on another bidder. I have explained this matter. Assistance that I provided was on a general perspective. Did not interact with any of the returnable documents of the company at hand. Hence, further to that, I expected no financial gain. I had no interest in that. It was just me providing guidance to a friend in general terms to a bid that was open at the time. I did not see the need to disclose that because it doesn't affect any objectivity that might be there on a bid that is currently in question. You refer to direct communications on another bid. That bid was open, and in reference to discussion they had with Sergeant Nkosi, the regrouping clearly meant, if needs be, I'll explain to you the contents of administrative requirements, the mandatory requirements, as well as the evaluation criteria. There's nothing wrong with that. I have given evidence on why that's allowed if individuals do ask you to clarify for that. That ultimately didn't happen. Secondly, they weren't even awarded. I still maintain that I have no interest as a result of that factor, which brings me to conclude that there was nothing necessary for me to declare. The third one is on the Gubis payment. On the Gubis payment, I was clear. Sergeant Nkosi involved himself. I didn't actively say, may you please assist me with mediating this. A phone call was given to me and had a discussion. Hence, from that perspective, I did not actively encourage him to assist me in terms of dealing with that matter at hand. I did, however, admit, Chair, that in hindsight, on this matter, I should have requested for a number. And on this, I should have requested for a number so that I'm able to deal directly with the Deputy Chief Dlamini. On the second aspect you have raised on the Gubis payment on termination, this was clear. I asked for his number afterwards, and I subsequently took the matter up with the General directly. there was no further interaction with Sergeant Nkosi in reference to the termination letter. In hindsight, I'd also agreed that this is an issue that could have resulted in a problem for me, and I should have got the details directly, and I subsequently received those. Hence, from my perspective, there's nothing to declare. I still have no interest, and my objectivity would not have been impaired whatsoever. The last one that you had raised in terms of giving him access to information, I disagreed with this. It's not a fact. There's no single instance from my perspective where I shared any sensitive documentation with him. The termination letter, like I said, was general. We've seen that. There's nothing sensitive about that. The service provider had already received it. And from my perspective, he would have got no advantage, firstly. Nor would his brother's company would have gotten advantage, purely taking into account that they're not even a bidder who would be eligible to be allocated any ad hoc related services work. Thanks, SC.
So, Mr. Mnisi, if this whole process is repeated next year in another bid, and all of these facts were to happen again, would you still sit on the BAC and not make any disclosure on your interest form?
In hindsight, I did agree that there is a perception of conflict having existed. Firstly, during this exercise, I've learned a lot and I've identified my mistakes and errors. I can assure you, errors of this nature will never reoccur in the near future. However, if they do reoccur, a perception is there, and I would not sit in that committee. Like I said, this is a perception issue that would still have been evaluated, because I'm saying, as I speak at that point in time, I've got no interest and my objectivity wouldn't have been impaired. I still maintain that. However, I've seen a lot of shortcomings and shortfalls and gaps within the conduct, and I would put systems in place to improve that moving forward.
Well, my question was first, would you sit on the BAC again? Yes or no?
Okay.
If all of these facts are repeated and you now are called to a BAC meeting against that background, would you sit on the BAC?
The first
Yes or no? Yes or no? Just simple yes or no.
Okay, no.
No. Okay.
Me
Thank
expanding further on that, SC, is that this would never happen again. So if we speculate what would happen in the future, it's a bit difficult for me to concur with. I can explain what happened, but in the future,
I'm
this would never
satisfied with your
occur
answer. No, you wouldn't. I appreciate that. Mr. Mnisi, you'll be relieved, as I am, to hear that I have no further questions.
Thank you, SC.
Mr. Mnisi,
Chair.
when Mr. Chaskalson engaged you on the grounds for cancelling TMPD3, you dealt with what you called an irregularity that related to the bid specification requirement of firearm licenses. Is that correct?
It was one of the issues that...
No, I'm just focusing on this one, not the rest.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And do you accept that the effect of the BAC's resolution in relation to this ground of cancellation was to undo a stage as early as the bid specification? Because you are effectively saying the bid specification ought not to have been framed like this, and therefore the tender document itself ought not to have been framed in this manner. So do you agree that your resolution as the BAC was effectively to undo a stage as early as the bid specification?
I agree. It was one of those reasons, Commissioner.
Yes. Now, can you show us where the BAC derives the power from to invalidate an entire tender process based on its view of shortcomings in the bid specification?
Chair, this particular matter was not invalidated by the BAC. The BEC brought a report with these resolutions already there that the tender must be cancelled. The BAC assessed and found additional matters which were added, and it's the three requirements that you just made reference to.
I'm asking you about the power. Can you just say, I may be wrong, as you seem to be suggesting, that it was the BAC that effectively, in fact, you've already agreed that it was the BAC that effectively upended the process going back to the bid specification. So what I'm saying is, show us where the power the BAC has to do that.
The BAC has power to recommend. The BAC doesn't have power to cancel. They have the power to recommend, and the accounting officer has the power to cancel. He has the authority not to agree to the recommendation that the BAC has, so they don't have that power.
Okay, where does the BAC, because the BAC can only make a recommendation that is based on a power that exists. So whether the power lay with the BAC or the accounting officer, show us where that power is.
Within this pack, it's not here.
A power, it does not need to be in this pack. Where does the power come from for an entire tender process to be undone from a stage as early as the bid specification? Where does that power come from?
The city manager delegates that in the form of appointment letters when he's delegating his powers to the BAC.
No, the municipal manager can only delegate powers that she herself has. So if you say that this is a power that rests on the accounting officer, the municipal manager, show me where that power comes from.
I don't have that information with me at present offhand, Chair. I will have to come back to you on that. But I can confirm to you that that power is by law rests with the city manager. He delegates that to the BAC through a letter when he appoints members.
Wouldn't know, you wouldn't be in a position to say by law that power vests in. If, as you've just said, you do not know where this comes from, would you?
Chair, maybe I'm misunderstanding you. Maybe I'm not.
So are you
understanding.
saying,
Can you please
okay,
rephrase?
let me ask the question differently. Are you saying, as a matter of fact, if not law, the municipal manager does have the power to undo a tender process right from the start, the bid specification stage, based on shortcomings at that stage, undo it right at the tail end? Are you saying the the municipal manager, has that power?
He has the powers, Chair.
Based on shortcomings in the bid specification?
Chair, he does have those powers.
I'm specific.
Yes, he does have those powers. If he picks up this is an anomaly that will lead to irregularities, he does have those powers.
I'm just thinking, the bid process is a very expensive process for the tenderers. I would imagine there's a lot of expense, in fact, even for the municipality itself, not only in monetary terms, but also in terms of the person hours that have to be used to run this entire process from the beginning all the way to the end. So are you saying the municipal manager can just sit by and say, right at the tail end, I may undo all of this based on the fact that the bid specification ought not to have provided in this manner?
He is the accounting officer, he has those powers. As long as he satisfies himself, he's got a duty to satisfy himself as well, with the reasons behind that, and he can take a decision of that. So by virtue of being an accounting officer, he does have those powers.
Do you agree though that a sensible way would be for the municipal manager to be in the know right from the beginning as to what the tender entails? Because if that were to be the position, this strange process would be obviated. The municipal manager would be able to pronounce right at the beginning and say, no, we can't have a tender process along these lines because there's everything wrong with a bid specification.
Chair, you will remember an advert is signed off by the accounting officer. Before any advert goes out, that's a specification. So at that point in time, if he wants, he could request a specific document and say, I want to see the contents of this specification. He has that authority, and he can see that at that point.
Thank you very much for that response. Then surely the accounting officer cannot, having approved the bid specification, which finds its way into the tender document itself, cannot, having approved it, at the tail end say, oh, by the way, I've since changed my mind, and now I'm saying there was everything wrong with the bid specification. Surely that cannot be, because, as you say, the municipal manager will already have signed off on that document. They can't change their mind. Surely not.
Chair, I respectfully disagree with you. He is the accounting officer. We have to analyze the cost of compliance. In this terms, compliance is key. And if any irregularities amount, if there's irregular expenditure amounting this tender, and the accounting officer would have been alarmed that there is an issue on the specifications, he will be held accountable. So the powers are with him, he can decide.
Signing off on that document right at the beginning, even before entities begin to put in bids, is an indication that the accounting officer is saying there is nothing wrong with this document. So the accounting officer is already happy that there are no irregularities. Otherwise, what's the point of the accounting officer signing off at the beginning? It would be pointless. So there's already a pronouncement on the existence or otherwise of irregularities. And in this instance, by signing off, the accounting officer is saying there are no irregularities. Surely, Mr. Mnisi.
Chair, I agree with you on that perspective. He would sign it off. He might not have picked up any irregularities. And just to add practically how it happens, these are delegated functions. So we rely on the work that the bid specification committee would have done. In practice, he does not request to review each terms of reference of the tender document, nor do I request that. We rely on the work of the BSC, the bid specification
but it
committee.
goes beyond the bid. It goes beyond the bid specification committee. It goes to the person who actually takes the final decisions on these matters, and that person takes a decision right at the beginning and says everything is in order here. That's the last point on that one, but you may comment. I'll move on.
Chair, the accounting officer is ultimately responsible for the procurement environment of the city. He's ultimately responsible for ensuring that bid specifications are in place. The functions are delegated. He trusts the work of the BSC as a result of them being constituted by members of the department, specialists within supply chain management. I rely on their work as well. At the tail end of that process, if we identify an irregularity, we can't ignore that, even though we had signed on it previously. So the accounting officer, on the recommendations of BAC, then takes that decision after analyzing that. It's a sore point to experience, Chair, but it's necessary in order to avoid irregular expenditure. I wouldn't want irregular expenditure to be recovered for me as a result of overlooking a matter of this nature. I can recommend to the accounting officer, he still has the duty to evaluate those reasons, concur or refer them back. In this instance, he concurred with the reasons, and he approved.
Just one. There's a fancy Latin term, Mr. Mnisi, that says that an organ of state cannot revisit their decision if they are functus officio, which means basically that once an organ of state has taken, which would be the accounting officer here, once an organ of state has taken a decision on something, they do not have the power to revisit that decision. They would have to go elsewhere, court to be specific, to say, oh, by the way, I made a mistake by signing off on that document. Court, can you please set it aside? On what you are saying, which is the accounting officer is assisted by all the actors at these various stages and can then take a decision at the tail end, surely that has nothing to do with what the accounting officer has already signed off on. It will be whatever happens in accordance with what the accounting officer has already signed off on, cannot revisit the decision on that aspect. Do you want to comment?
With your permission, yes, please, Chair. Firstly, in terms of the difficult legal terms that you had raised, I'm not aware of them. And of course, I'll request my legal team to help me clarify that if needs be. However, in the second aspect, I can confirm, I can comment on that the procurement
Yes,
process,
yes.
Chairperson, is looked at holistically. Even if you pick up an error from the beginning of the process, you have a duty to raise that. If it's an error that's valid, that might lead to irregularity, you can't ignore that. We do take a decision to cancel that bid. We then leave that onus on any supplier who says, no, but you shouldn't have canceled this bid, because we make that public as well. Bidders ask us what happened on this, we'll inform them this was canceled because of these reasons. If a bidder chooses to take the city to court, we'll then deal with it at that stage. That's the process that we follow at the city from a practical perspective.
I asked my question about an empowering prescript without the knowledge of what you later told us, which is that the accounting officer signs off right at the beginning. Let me repeat my question, but adding to it what you told us. Is there any prescript that entitles the municipal manager to revisit and alter a decision on the bid specification? Can the municipality in law undo that decision? Is there a specific prescript that you can show us in that regard?
I think I can refer you to the city supply chain management policy.
Yes.
On that policy, it's clause 11, which terms evaluation of bids, clause 7.
Which says what? Because the very reference to evaluation does not seem to have anything to do with the municipal manager undoing the bid specification.
That clause,
You are talking evaluation.
that clause guides the cancellation of bids. In terms of cancellation of bids,
That still says nothing about the power of the municipal manager to undo a bid specification.
Chair, like I said, the accounting officer is responsible for managing the city in all respects. He has
Okay.
the powers to ensure
Let's leave it. I'm not done, but Commissioner Baloyi wants to engage you on this.
Yes. The city's SCM policy will tell us what the functions of the various committees
Yes.
are, including the role of the city manager, right?
Yes.
If I want to know what the powers of the city manager are, I'll have to go and look at the SCM policy when
Yes.
it comes to procurement matters.
Yes.
Okay. And unless it's in the policy, that power, unless it's prescribed by the policy, the city manager doesn't have it. Can we accept that as a proposition? That the powers of the city manager, they derive from the SCM policy relating to matters of procurement.
Commissioner, I can't accept that. What I can put to you is that the accounting officer, he's accountable for all aspects of the city.
Okay.
He needs,
Let me ask my question anyway. Are you saying to the chairperson and to us that the city manager plays a part in defining the specifications of a bid? And I'm asking you because my understanding from other evidence, including yours, is that the client, the user of that service that is being procured is the one that defines the specifications. There's a committee, and it is that committee that takes into account what the user requires to specify the specifications. Now, your evidence suggests that the city manager is part of that process.
that's incorrect. That's not my evidence. Those are delegated functions to this bid.
Sorry, what is incorrect?
That's not my evidence. I did not say the city manager has a role in defining specifications. I said those are delegated functions which rest with the bid specification committee.
Yes.
The user department prepares terms of reference and presents those to the bid specification committee. The bid specification committee analyzes and assesses the contents of that and approves it accordingly.
Yes. But you see, you say the city manager, and I'm taking into account the other evidence you gave, in fact, the reason that you recommended, the BAC recommended the cancellation of TMPD 3. One of the reasons is the specification does not say anything about CIRA guidelines, and you say that was a valid reason for cancellation. Now, therefore, it must mean that should have been in the specification. You are saying to us that the city manager is entitled to refuse to approve on the basis that the specification didn't include the CIRA guidelines. That must mean that the city manager has a say into what goes into the bid specification. It means that, logically, it means that. It means the city manager has a role in what goes into the specification. In your case, right at the end, when the recommendation is made, the city manager will say, I don't like the fact that the specification did not include the CIRA guidelines, but that is to have a say in the bid specification. And unless it's in your supply chain management policy, which is not before us, but we will verify it for ourselves, unless it is in the SCM policy, that I want to suggest to you or to put to you that the city manager will be acting outside of his powers. If he tries to exercise a power that goes back to the specification and then say, that was not included and I don't like that fact and therefore I'm not approving. In short, what I'm saying to you, Mr. Mnisi, is you are not correct to say the city manager has any say whatsoever in the specifications.
May I please
Comment?
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner, I think firstly, the reasons for cancelling TMPD 3 is not only the 3 reasons that are recorded in the report, and I've raised that. And for the record, I just want to be clear. The primary reasons are contained in the probity report. These were 3 additional reasons.
Let's not discuss that. Let's not discuss that. I have mentioned to you one of the grounds. One of the grounds, because you mentioning the other things that I'm not referring to ends up obfuscating, in fact. I'm very specific. You've given 3 reasons why that tender was cancelled, and you've canvassed this with Mr. Chaskalson at length, so we don't need to go there. I've given you just one reason that you've given. You've said the specification did not include the CIRA guidelines, and that's one of the reasons we recommended to the city manager that the tender should not be approved or should not be awarded. From those facts, which we've established from your evidence, that's the facts. I'm saying to you, if the city manager says, I don't like the fact that the CIRA guidelines were not included in the specification, that is to have a say in the specification. And the city manager, I'll be surprised if your supply chain management policy empowers the city manager to have a say in the specification of the bid. I'm simply putting that to you. And if you say to me it does, the SCM policy does allow him to do that, I'm putting to you that we will look it up. We will look it up, and I'm brave enough to say to you there's no such provision in the policy.
Maybe to comment on that, I firstly indicated that specifications are delegated. The city manager doesn't have time to look at every single tender specification that go out. We literally take out hundreds, if not thousands, of documents that are advertised. The city manager will not have time to look at each and every single specifications whether he's happy with from the beginning. Practically, that's not possible, and practically that does not happen, and that's not my evidence. My evidence is that the work of the bid specification is delegated. The department initiates the compilation of the terms of reference. They present that to an independent committee called the Bid Specification Committee. The Bid Specification Committee interacts with the terms of reference and the key conditions that have been set within that process. They could either approve or disapprove that for whatever reason that they have. They then approve that accordingly. Once that's approved, an advert is issued, which is endorsed by myself as well as endorsed by the city manager. We rely on the work that was done by the BSC, that indeed these terms of reference are compliant. However, at the tail end, if there are issues that emanate in relation to this bid, As a result of issues in bid specification, the accounting officer does have the power to cancel that.
And you say that includes, the exercise of that power includes that the specification did not include a the requirement of CIRA guidelines. It didn't include that, and that the city manager has a power to rely on as a basis to refuse to approve the tender.
It would include any shortcomings which...
No, Mr. Mnisi, let's not do that. I'm asking you a very specific question. If I wanted to ask you a general question, I would have done so. I'm asking you a very specific question, and please answer my question. My question is, are you saying that the city manager has the power deriving from the supply chain management policy that when eventually the BAC presents to him its recommendation to approve a tender, he can say, the specification did not include the CIRA guidelines. I therefore am not going to approve because the CIRA guidelines were not included in the specification. You can say yes or no, and this doesn't require an explanation. I just want to know yes or no.
In that case, the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
Let's continue, Mr. Mnisi, to a different point. Earlier, I think it was this morning, you said in response to a question by Commissioner Baloyi, you did not consider the tender process to have been corrupted by the fact that Sergeant Nkosi had accessed the draft admin report. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes. If Sergeant Nkosi had access to the BEC draft admin report, which starts at page 158, the possibility exists that he could access any other bid documents. Do you accept that?
I can't accept that because I wouldn't know.
But you can't deny it as well.
I can't accept it and I can't deny it.
So you cannot discount the possibility that he could. Is that
No,
so?
Yes, yes.
Yes. At the very least, it's not speculation, please. I'm testing the witness. This has nothing to do with speculation. At the very least, the known fact of Sergeant Nkosi having access to a BEC document must have raised alarm bells. Correct?
No, not correct, Chair. There was no sensitive information, as I've stated earlier on. There's nothing confidential that's there or sensitive information in that leaked report that I confirmed is a leaked report.
What I'm saying is the fact that he could access an internal document. Doesn't matter what nature, it doesn't matter what effect it actually had or could not have had. What I'm focusing on is the fact of him being able to source an internal document. And what I'm saying is, surely that must have raised alarm bells.
From my perspective, my answer was no.
Is that purely because of the nature of the document?
Chair, the nature of that document was not sensitive. It only contained...
No, I'm
issues of the closing.
asking, are you saying in your case it did not? Are you saying that because of the nature of the document or not?
Yes.
So
saying
if he has sourced a fairly innocuous document, it basically means nothing. It does not matter to you that the very fact that he has accessed an innocuous document shows that he could very well access documents that are not innocuous at all. Is that not...
I've agreed to that. I said I am
Yes,
concerned.
so that possibility, the possibility of other documents which may not be innocuous, must surely raise alarm bells.
I agree to that, Chair.
Yes. So I must go back to Commissioner Baloyi's question then. If the possibility of Ms. Sergeant Nkosi not only accessing the one document, but the possibility of even accessing others Surely it must tell you that that may well be an indication that the process has been corrupted. As you sit there, you do not know whether he had actually accessed other documents, but you had seen that at the very least he had accessed one. So on what basis can you say, as you sit there, that the process could not possibly have been corrupted?
Chair, I've agreed to you in terms of my concerns and him obtaining the document. I've also agreed with you in terms of his prospective ability to obtain further documentation. He could have. I've agreed to that. I did not deny that.
With the possibility of corrupting the process. My focus is on Commissioner Baloyi's question. So with the possibility of the entire process being corrupted, yes or no?
I have agreed to that.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mnisi, just one from me. Please go to page 52 of bundle 3.
Page 52. Yes,
Are you there?
I'm there.
So this is the letter from the Hawks,
Yes,
DPCI,
yes,
addressed to the office of the CFO,
yes.
City of Tshwane Municipality. That would be your office, correct?
Correct?
And they say the Hawks are investigating alleged case of corruption against the City of Tshwane municipal officials attached to the SCM department, together with other finance officials. Do you see that?
I see that.
And then they ask for various documents relating to certain companies
Yes,
and certain officials.
yes,
So this is a document that the Hawks have addressed to the City of Tshwane, correct?
correct?
And you have shared this document with Sergeant Nkosi, correct?
Correct?
And then all the communication with the investigating officers in this case, you have also shared that with Sergeant Nkosi, correct?
Correct?
And the City of Tshwane's response to the Hawks, you've also shared it with Sergeant Nkosi to review before the response is sent to the Hawks, correct?
Correct?
And that is on page 65. If you want to satisfy yourself, you can have a look at it, but it is there. And it goes to my issue, which I raised with you earlier today and again yesterday. Your propensity to share with Sergeant Nkosi documents that are confidential to the City of Tshwane. What business does Sergeant Nkosi have with the Hawks investigating tender irregularities in the City of Tshwane?
Chair, first of all, this was a fake and a fraudulent letter that was sent by imposters, I'm going to put it that way, imposters purporting to be from the DPCI. We've got a process that's validated and tested in terms of how we deal with investigations, organs of state, Chapter 9 institutions. The protocol that is followed, firstly, any communications must be addressed to the city manager. It's in standard protocol. We deal with these issues on a daily basis. We've seen a number of these communications daily. Secondly, there must be sufficient communication and reference information in the document. If you look at this document, firstly, it doesn't even have a tender number, nor does it have any official communication instruments to communicate with the purported investigation. I'll give you a sequence of events of how this emanates.
I allowed you to answer, and you didn't even answer my question, but I was patient because I wanted to give you a chance. Let's assume that this letter is fake. The first time you get it, you don't know that it is fake, correct?
No, I know, because I analyzed the letter.
Yes.
I look at the letter, I analyze the process that's followed, I pick up anomalies. I know immediately it's fake.
Where was it sent to, this letter?
It was left at reception.
At
Census of-
reception where?
At the city.
At the City of Tshwane?
Yes, at the City of Tshwane.
It is a letter left at the reception at the City of Tshwane. What business does Sergeant Nkosi have?
It was a test of legitimacy. I needed him to give me advice on how I can take this matter up further. I needed to ensure that these individuals are trapped so that behavior of this nature does not carry on any further.
Did you report it to the police station?
I was waiting for advice from Sergeant Kosi in terms of how we deal with this. Even if you look at the communication that you refer to on, I think, page 64, I commit to submitting these documents to the purported individuals, CC the supply chain management officials. The plan was to test legitimacy and to trap these individuals.
So 2 years later, have you reported it to the police, to SAPS?
No, I haven't reported it to SAPS.
But you, in a City of Tshwane letterhead, sent a draft response to Sergeant Nkosi to review.
I was asking for advice on how to trap these individuals.
In a City of Tshwane letterhead, you sent a draft response to Sergeant Nkosi to review. Is that correct?
It's not, it's an email with my signature. It's not a letter. That's my signature that's appearing there. So I was saying, did I cover the contents correctly? Will this help me catch these individuals in order to enable me to report this case? In short, this was an unlawful letter, and there's no unlawful conduct for myself because this is not an official document for the city. You'll be aware, Chair, that these individuals disappeared from here. We sent a team to go there at 10 a.m. to deliver documentation. When they were being contacted, they completely disappeared. That number stopped working as well.
You see, you're telling me about the facts, and I'm not asking you about the facts, but I accept that that is your answer. My question is really why you involved Sergeant Nkosi in matters that relate to a letter sent to City of Tshwane. Forget about it's fraudulent, you are aware that it's fraudulent. You've already said yourself, it is sent to the City of Tshwane, it is left at the offices. My question is, why do you involve Sergeant Nkosi in City of Tshwane matters?
It's not a City of Tshwane matter, it's an unlawful event. I needed to trap this individual so that I can open a case against him. He is a member of Hawks. You should be aware of the process on how I can escalate any irregularities of this nature. I was asking for advice on how to escalate the matter further.
So if a fraud happens at the City of Tshwane's offices because it is a fraud, you are at liberty to involve Sergeant Nkosi, not internal fraud people, but Sergeant Nkosi. He's the one who must advise you on what to do. He's the one that must comment on your draft responses, on letters that are dropped off at the City of Tshwane's offices.
Unlawful letters that are not official documentation. The procedures are not followed up. I will even give you an example. We had a matter of this nature where I had my first encounter with the senior counsel, Charles Carlson. They had a matter where he was dealing with another organ of state. The protocols that were followed, him and the representatives he was working with communicated to the city manager. This is a matter that was now delegated to me officially by the city manager that we have received an inquiry of this nature. CFO, you need to deal with this accordingly. I then action it accordingly. Protocol is not followed. This is not a lawful letter.
So if there's a fraudulent inquiry made at the City of Tshwane, the port of call is Sergeant Nkosi to advise on how to respond to that fraudulent letter sent to the City of Tshwane. That's your answer, as I understand it.
No, that's not my answer.
What is your answer?
My answer is I asked for advice because he is a member of the Hawks and he should know the escalation processes.
He's a member of?
He is the member of DPCI. He's a SAPS official. He should know the processes of escalating these matters. From my perspective, this was a good deed. This was in good faith. I needed advice on how to deal with the situation moving forward.
And was it reported to the police? I think that was my last question. Yes. You said you were waiting for advice from him, but that was in 2024. So what has happened in the last 18 months?
Since the disappearance of these individuals, I guess I was overtaken by events because they never ever came up, they never ever called, nor did they ever respond to this formal correspondence that was sent.
You never reported this attempted fraud?
Officially, no. I was overtaken by events, the individuals disappeared. When I tried to contact them to say I'm here, the number just didn't work. Didn't go through any longer.
Does it mean you're resorting to Sergeant Nkosi on something like this? Does it mean that the City of Tshwane doesn't have its own internal investigations department or people that could have investigated this for you?
It does have that. But
why did you decide to go to Sergeant Nkosi instead?
It investigates internal matters. Their matters are for issues that occur within the city. They are not authorized to investigate other organs of state.
No, but this is a matter that is occurring within the city. You've been addressed in your official capacity as the Chief Financial Officer, so it is a city business. It's not a personal matter. It says CFO City of Tshwane, so it is a city matter. And you don't refer it to the legal department. You don't refer it to your internal investigators. You don't refer it to the city manager. You say there's protocol. It should have gone to the city manager. You don't say, city manager received this. I'm giving it to you because that's our protocol, that these kind of things should be coming to you. You go to, and then you don't lay a complaint with the SAPS. And if I'm not mistaken, they'll correct me, Sergeant Gossi is not a member of the Hawks. You don't lay a complaint with the SAPS. You go to your friend to help you solve a City of Tshwane matter. Even if it's a fraud, it's a City of Tshwane matter. Can you just explain why you choose not to follow protocol? You say we have a protocol. You don't follow protocol. Why?
Chair, I do follow protocol.
No, you didn't follow protocol. Your protocol does not include Sergeant Nkosi. Can we settle that? Nkosi is a member of the public. He's no different from me. So you going to him is not to follow protocol. And I've said to you, and I've indicated to you, bodies internally that you could have gone to, your internal investigation people whom you say you have. You have a legal department, and you have the city manager that you tell us correspondence is addressed to the city manager if there are issues, but you don't escalate this to the city manager to decide what to do with it. You instead go to your friend.
Okay. Chair, firstly, group audit and risk and legal investigate internal matters. They can't investigate external institutions. That was my understanding. That's still my understanding now. I couldn't have referred this matter to them. Firstly, I needed to ensure that I find processes in place to escalate this accordingly within the SEP structures. This was me asking for advice on what process I need to undertake to raise this matter accordingly to the relevant officials within SEPs. It was a SEPs-related issue where an unlawful...
Did you formally, when you gave this to Sergeant Gossi, are you saying that's you reporting to the SEPs? And if your answer is yes, then I leave it at that. I will not ask you any further questions. Are you saying that when you handed this over, that's you escalating it to the SEPs?
I can't find an easy way out, and the answer is no. Me sending to the Sergeant course, I needed to understand the escalation processes on if I receive an issue of this nature, which I've ascertained myself, it's a fake letter, it's unlawful. What steps do I need to follow to raise this accordingly within the SEPs?
Okay.
That was the reason I sent it to Sergeant Corsi. I needed advice and guidance, which he provided me.
But you did more than getting the steps. You actually, as Commissioner Komalo says, prepared a draft response
Yes.
on Tshwane communication record, which is your email with a signature. So you prepare a response to which Sergeant Nkosi makes an input. So you did more than, in fact, it is not correct to say you were asking and he provided you with how to escalate this. You actually, with him, started dealing with the matter, responding until these people disappeared. I mean, there are WhatsApp messages here where people are being asked, who are you? Where can I come and deliver documents? That's more than, or in fact, has nothing to do with escalating.
Chair, from my perspective, there was nothing wrong asking for guidance from a subject matter expert. He seemed like a subject matter expert. He knew the process to be followed. He guided me accordingly. There was nothing wrong with that.
That's your answer. Thank you.
Ms. Vandenheefer, I think we've reached the stage where you should indicate whether you will be re-examining. And our practice is to ask upfront what you will be re-examining on. I know the evidence has ended just now, and I do not know if you have applied your mind to that.
At this point, our indication is that we do want to re-examine.
Yes.
And we would like to have an opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
But in the lateness of the hour, I assume we were going to have to arrange for a date.
We certainly cannot say no to that. And what did you say? I'm very sorry, I was whispering to Commissioner Baloyi. What did you say about the lateness of the hour?
I said I assume we'll have to arrange for a date
for
the
that.
re-examination.
For that, yeah. I think we cannot avoid that. Let's just adjourn without This will actually afford, an adjournment will actually afford you an opportunity to put together beforehand the questions, not so much the questions, rather the aspects or issues that you will be re-examining on. And must we give a timeline? Maybe, what?
Chairperson, may I be so bold as to request that I discuss it with my learned friend on availability of dates? As I said to him earlier today, we've accommodated, we've had to, for a number of days, rearrange our diary. So we would really like to be able to have a say in when we do that. Both Mr. Matopo and myself had to.
By all means, and I would not suggest otherwise, yes. Mr. Chaskalson, do you want to make a suggestion with regard to the timeline on the issues that the re-examination will deal with? And perhaps before Mr. Chaskalson's response, let me just alert you, Ms. van den Heever, that is it the rules? I think our rules, or the regulations provide that after your re-examination, the evidence leader may again examine the witness. Just, you are aware. Thank you very much, thank you. Mr. Chaskalson?
Chair, certainly if we could get an indication, I need to have a sense of the topics just so I have a sense of how long the process is going to be able to schedule it. So if we could get that indication by the end of the week, then we could, Ms. van den Heever and I could just then look for a date that works for both
So
of us.
perhaps let's just leave it at council coming back to us on the timeline.
We would be indebted, Chairperson, Commissioners.
All right, then, the timeline is agreed. End of the week. The date, that will be resolved between council.
Thank you, Chair. We'll do that.
Yes. Is
Thank
there
you.
anything else? Nothing else.
Not
Okay.
from my side, either.
All right. Let's adjourn and resume at 9:30 tomorrow. Mr. Mnisi, you will come back on a date to be advised.